Hey guys, what's up? It's Scumbag 5000 back at it again with the FIFA unboxing video. It's time to give EA some free money, baby. Let's go. First off, I gotta shout out to today's sponsor, StealYourMoney.com. They're the best, guys. All you gotta do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, and lick my fucking balls for your chance to win 8 million Robux. Alright, fellas, let's hurry up and open some loot boxes, alright? I need to get some dopamine real quick. Oh yeah, new unboxing visuals. So glad I paid $100 for this shit. Well, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Time for me to play the latest release in the most shameless franchise made by the most shameless game developer, so you don't have to. And to the surprise of what should be exactly 0 people, FIFA 23 continues this series' trend of being a shitty cash grab made by soulless corpo fucks that do not care one iota about you or anything other than appeasing their shareholders and reaping in fat stacks of cash year on year. The match engine is almost indistinguishable from and just as shit as last year's. The same can be said for its single player modes, and the focus of the game's existence is still clearly around making as much money as possible from problem gamblers through Ultimate Team, rather than showing any passion for competent game development. But despite the fact that you already knew all of this, you're here watching this video, and for that you have my gratitude, though you'd have even more if you were to smash the like button, gently press the subscribe button, and make sure you watch all of the ads that YouTube forces upon this video, because for the last time before this shitty franchise becomes EA Sports FC, you're watching Why FIFA 23 Sucks, bitch. Now, first and foremost, as with my earlier reviews, this will be more focused on the match engine and the game's single player modes, because even looking at the Ultimate Team button makes me feel dirty, and I refuse to touch it due to how much of a soulless money factory it is. But I digress. Let's first talk about the match engine, and more specifically, how shit it is. And every year I get the same comments from Danny G in Birmingham saying,
"Alright, I tell you what, you cheeky little prick. First off, you're boring. Second, FIFA is good, right? You're just fucking shit at it. And third, come to Birmingham and I'll snap off your cock and I'll jam it up your fucking bum."
And you know what? Big Danny G is kinda right, because much like last year, this game actually kicked my ass a bit on legendary difficulty. But also much like FIFA 22, the reason isn't because the opposition AI is any better. It's more to do with the fact that defending is completely and utterly impossible. As it has been for many years now, defending in this game is a complete and utter joke. Your defenders will just stand there and watch as a striker sits completely unmarked on the penalty spot, or one of them will make it their mission to keep the entire opposition onside, but it will not occur to them to try and mark or close them down in the slightest. Their positioning is always terrible, fullbacks in particular, and half of the time they can barely keep up with an attacker who has the ball at their feet. Through balls straight up the middle work far too easily in this game, almost as well as cutbacks from the byline to an unmarked man 8 yards out. It shits me to no end that EA deliberately makes defending such a hopeless chore. It cannot be a mere whoopsie fucking daisy that defensive positioning is this bad and that it turns the game into a goal fest. They're obviously doing it on purpose. I hate the fact that there's this misconception, especially amongst fans of other codes of football here in Australia, that if only one or a few goals is scored in a game, then it was boring. The most intense game I played on FIFA 23 was a League 2 game that ended 1-0. It was end-to-end on a knife's edge with lots of close chances. Do you know what isn't fun? Games that end up 7-3 because nobody knows how to defend properly. The match engine was very clearly designed in some vain attempt to appease the Ultimate Team cash cows that pour their money directly down EA's throat, so that they don't complain when there aren't at least 8 goals scored per match. Another thing that annoys me is that CMs and even CDMs still completely refuse to come back and help defend unless you manually drag them back. And last year I mentioned that there's no option to make them come back and defend in tactics, and there still isn't. And telling them to man mark or stay back while attacking doesn't change anything either. Believe me, I fucking tried. But what really annoys me is that they do for the AI. In fact, the AI can actually defend as a unit competently, especially on the higher difficulties. Whereas on Legendary it seems that your own player's positioning becomes even worse, in some bullshit attempt to make the game harder without actually making the AI any better. There's also still a huge gap between good and bad teams. Rather than making overall ratings and player stats actually mean something, it feels like when you're playing against teams that are better than you, your players just can't do basic things right, and vice versa, the AI is noticeably more reckless and wasteful in front of goal. If you're playing as a lower half team in the Premier League, it is nigh on impossible playing against the top teams, whereas you can still quite easily beat small clubs like Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. And like I said, it's not like the opposition AI is particularly good. On higher difficulties, they always try to play TicTac like Barcelona, which poses issues when it's playing as a League 2 team, and it's also not smart enough to press you when you're passing it around the back because you're up by 1 goal. I was actually expecting a change to this year's match engine, with Hypermotion finally making its way to PC this year, you know, with all that machine learning and extra decision making that they hyped up for it, but I would have to say that this is the most blatant case of fraudulent advertising since the film The Never-Ending Story, because it made absolutely zero noticeable difference to the match engine at all. You could have told me that Hypermotion was still not ported to the PC and I would have believed you. If anything, the physics and motion is worse than in last year, with AI players able to do those ridiculous physics-breaking headers that haven't been in the game for years, and those Gmod ragdoll-esque noises that you hear when going for a slide tackle. Handballs still just aren't a thing in this game, players still telegraph penalty kicks way too much, making them easy to save, and the ball still has a tendency to just magnetize back to an attacker's feet when you make a tackle in defense. So little has changed from last year, let alone from the last 5 or 6. People tell me every year that I should just re-upload the same video from last year and dub over the top of it with the game number from this year, and if there was ever a year that truly deserved it, it's this year's game, because when it comes to its match engine, it is more or less identical to last year's. Actually, that's not true. There is one noticeable difference, because without fail, every single year EA managed to make Goalkeepers even worse, and FIFA 23 is certainly no exception. I know they were already really bad, but now they are almost completely fucking useless. They get beaten at their near post 90% of the time, they flap around like fucking morons when a ball is 6 inches to the right of them at chest height, and half of the time they just fall over instead of actually trying to make a save. If you could just play 11 outfield players instead of a goalkeeper, you'd be 100% better off, because there is more or less no point them even being there. Now we move on to my favorite part of the video, career mode. But since you guys always bully me in the comments because I say career mode and it sounds like career mode, even though career and career are pronounced the fucking same, I will now differentiate between manager mode and player mode, because I actually spent slightly more time in player mode this time around. But first, I'll talk about the new manager mode features. And I know what you're thinking, but Davo, we already know they didn't add anything to manager mode. They never do, because it doesn't print free money for them like Ultimate Team does. And I hear your perfectly rational argument, but actually, they did add 3 new major features to manager mode. For the first time ever in video game history, you can now play as Ted Lasso and AFC Richmond from the television series made by a company that's arguably even more evil than EA is. And what makes it even better is that they face scanned Jason Sudeikis to give him a game face, but they didn't give one to Mikel Arteta, even though he had a game face in like FIFA 14. The second new feature is a grading system that pops up after every single transfer or sale of a player that rates how good the deal was. What is this, Sonic the fucking Hedgehog? Do I really need to be graded on things like my transfers when it means literally nothing and half the time it's broken as hell anyway? And the third new career mode feature is a handful of new animations that play when signing or selling players that are exactly the same every time they play, albeit with a different player model. This is what 12 months of game development and $100 gets you, folks. I really wish I was joking, but this is where the list ends. Actually no, that's a lie. There is one more new feature in manager mode. You now can't adjust your transfer and wage budgets because fuck you, that's why. How dare you be able to utilize a tool to help make strategic decisions for signing players in a game mode where that's the entire premise. EA, legit question here, are you actually this incompetent or are you just genuinely fucking with us now? Other than that, manager mode is exactly the same, down to the training and being able to just sim at the highest grade receive, which totally ruins the purpose of it, to the player development screen that was just stolen from Football Manager, to the press conferences and interviews with its brainless ass pick the right option to increase your team's morale where the wrong option is literally marked with a symbol for you. It's only now that I've done press conferences as Ted Lasso that I've truly realized realize the dialogue options are just generic bullshit that some motherfucker like Ted Lasso who knows nothing of substance about football would say. Create a Club is still as half-baked as it was last year, still without a proper badge creator, and it still creates kits that don't use league numbers, including for AFC Richmond, which already has an in-game kit, even though they've been able to adjust the numbers on the back of kits when you make it to the Premier League with an EFL club for fucking years. As I said, I did try a bit more of player mode as well, which is also more or less exactly the same, but it did introduce this new personality system which affects your players' stats based on how they train or what extra activities they participate in, which is shallow as fuck, but is actually a somewhat decent idea. And you know, I normally just spend a lot of time talking shit to you, EA, but here's a genuine suggestion for you for manager mode. Add this personality feature to it. Make it affect your players' stats, like if you're a hard ass, they have better stamina and tackle harder, and if you're big on teamwork, then they pass better. And you could use it to totally rework the dumbass presses and interviews. Rather than making it be a brain dead exercise to get free morale, make it affect your manager's personality, and make it actually relevant to what happened in the game. If you lose a game that you were expected to win and get mad about it, it should motivate your players, not lower their morale. But you know, expecting EA to make any genuine and worthwhile changes to manager mode is like expecting Arsenal to actually win the Premier League. It ain't gonna happen. It doesn't bring in all that extra loot box money after already slugging you $100 like Ultimate Team does, so why would a company like EA ever bother with that? At the end of the day, I think the one thing that I take away from this yearly foray into a FIFA career mode save is a deeper appreciation of just how much better Football Manager is than this shitty ass game. As with any release in this series from the last 10 years, FIFA 23 was shipped with a noticeable lack of polish that's to be expected from the franchise that acts as the poster boy for everything wrong with the modern games industry. First and foremost come the numerous bugs and glitches that you'll come across, not only the weird physics ones in game, but menu glitches as well. I found that in manager mode I would be unable to move unavailable players in team management before a game, even though I was trying to move them off the team. As mentioned, the new grading system in manager mode is completely broken, and in presses I was constantly told that I'd been beaten twice in a season by teams that I'd only played once. The game is still prone to picking kit clashes, with the kit selection still moved behind an optional customization menu, and they also for some reason moved the save button in manager mode to the customization tab of all places instead of just letting you press X to save like they have for fucking years. They added these new goal celebrations for when you score a goal really late in the game, and they're cool and all, but the game doesn't know when to appropriately use them. They just get used anytime a late goal is scored, whether it's actually a late equalizer or winner, or if you go up by 2 goals in a preseason friendly. Football is meant to be atmospheric, and dumb shit like this ruins it. But probably the most notable glitch in FIFA 23, however, was their new anti-cheat client that comes with it, which has no real bearing on me as someone who refuses to touch Ultimate Team, but which also prevented the game from launching 80% of the time, which I have to admit, stopping me from playing FIFA was probably my favourite new feature that they added. Kinda sad that they fixed that one, to be honest. And so here we are for the 6th year in a row asking the same question. Why the hell are people still buying FIFA when it is just so obviously shit? And now I give an answer as repetitive as this garbage franchise itself. Because what other option is there? On top of the fact that EA has the bulk of the licensing and that their only halfway genuine competitor is fucking Konami, people are always going to want the latest squads and players, as is the nature of any sports game, which is why EA gets away with doing nothing for an entire year and then charging us $100 for it. It's easy to rant on about the exploitative nature of Ultimate Team card packs and how it's used in tandem with soulless influences to prey upon those with addictive personalities, but the mere fact that it sells at all is down to how EA exploit the nature of football transfers and updates. The very nature of FIFA's existence as an annual release game is exploitative. Which is why if you're thinking about buying FIFA this year, maybe because it's the last one before it becomes EA Sports FC, or because you haven't got it in a while and maybe it'll be better than the last one you bought, then I urge you, don't. You'll just be paying a shitty, exploitative, money-grubbing company for doing literally nothing. Do not buy FIFA 23, do not give EA more money. And especially if you just want to play manager mode, buy Football Manager instead. I know it's not exactly the same, you don't actually control your team, but it is a far more in-depth and rewarding manager mode experience. And I know that FM does the same yearly release bullshit as FIFA, but the game is actually good, so I can somewhat excuse it. And just remember that 1 like on this video equals 1 less copy of FIFA sold for this year, so you basically have a moral obligation to like this video. Do it, you fucking scumbag. EA have continued to show with neither fail nor surprise that they're not for the fans, they're for the profits. And while this might be the end of the FIFA franchise as it transitions into EA Sports FC going forward, if the past is anything to go by, then there's absolutely no reason to be excited about the future.